did.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. It is the SCB Steelers Podcast presented by DEK Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And after 1 week off, we are back. And there is obviously a lot to talk about. The Pittsburgh Steelers communicated with me earlier this week, and they said, hey, we understand you guys were off for a week. And we've got some news, and we thought you guys would, like some stuff to talk about this week. So, yeah, we're going to dive right into why Cordell Patterson is still on the team. That's the topic. But no, in all seriousness, great to have everybody back. I see Aaron and the Godfather Cliff is in, and we know that others will be joining us soon. But big thanks, of course, to Variety Sports Network. Very, very proud to be part of them. And of course, the show comes to you from the Frank Walker Law Studio. And Ben is currently invisible. And Scarps, thank God, is here. And Ian may be like, I don't know, putting his 8 kids to bed by now. I'm sure there's one probably still awake. But in any case, Scarps, how was your day today on social media?
Today or yesterday?
Well, yeah, okay. The last 2 days. How about that?
I've had some actually pretty decent days.
Have you? Okay.
Over the years, the whole I'm a hater, although Ben calls me a hater, I'm a hater and I'm negative has turned into, hey, you might be right. I'm not trying to be right. I don't have all the answers. I'd like just, have a little bit of fun with it. But I think there's a lot of fans that just are way too emotional and don't think logically at all. There's no practical reasoning behind anything that they say. And again, I say some stupid things, we all do, but
sure.
Whether you're talking about George Pickens, whether you're talking the trade, where you're talking about a rebuild or a tank or a 9-8 Groundhog Day season, fans just get way too emotional. Of course, it's natural to be emotional as a fan, but if you take a step back and actually think about the things that have unfolded over the past, 10 seasons, and maybe look a little bit deeper, I think that is a better way to go than just being like, I hate the Steelers, they suck. I'm stunned. I've seen a ton of that. That over the past couple of days. And I'm critical of the team, but I have never once said Art sucks or Mike sucks or Omar sucks. And I mean, these fans are just like, F Omar, F. And I'm sitting there like, man, it's only a matter of time before you turn on the con artist. You loved them, last year before the Ayuk thing. Yeah. And then now you hate him because he traded your favorite player. It's just bizarre.
I think emotion is a huge part of it. I had to talk Steel Son off the ledge yesterday as soon as this was happening. And I try to put myself in the position of when I was a fan at that age. And there's no question. I am grateful that I did not have social media back then, because I probably would have been one of these over emotional assholes that just flies off the handle, does not think.
Probably would have been, like he's not one now.
Fair. But emotion is a big part of it. And I just think people need to take a step back and understand what the process was here in relation to George Pickens. So Ben, I know you're kind of in mid-chew there, okay? But if I showed you a video collection of George Pickens' highlights as a player, and that's all I showed you, what would be your take on the fact that the Steelers traded him? Would you be upset by that if I just showed you the highlights?
I'd be like, what the fuck?
Right.
I would think, wow, why would you throw away a talent like that? You're a quarterback away. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Dude was not getting a second contract.
No.
Under any circumstances. For second, they just didn't want to put up with him anymore. I mean, that bottom line is just that. They'd done it for 3 years. They were just like, fuck this. We don't want it anymore. The dude doesn't show up on time. He's been fined hundreds of thousands of dollars. He misses meetings, doesn't even give a heads up.
Mm-hmm.
The captains have sat down with him. Tomlin sat down with him. His position coach is a no-nonsense, disciplined guy. They hired him specifically for George.
Yeah.
And he couldn't right the ship with the dude either. And they just got tired of it. It just had run its course, and he's fucking done it. It doesn't sound like George Pickens is a bad guy. Like, he's not going to create problems off the field.
Mm-hmm.
But he is definitely a screw you, I'm going to do it my way guy. Sorry.
Yeah, and I'd like to welcome the Howard Johnson is right, everyone, to the show. And I think what we're talking about here right now, because there's a lot of tentacles to this. How are they going to replace him? Did they get good value for him? There's a lot of things to go down here. Ian, were you surprised at the timing of this?
A little bit. I mean, we all kind of thought he would get moved on draft night. And when that didn't happen, my thinking was, okay, they're just going to roll with him for this season, and it is what it is. And then we'll just get the comp pick in 2 years and go from there. And Dallas went through the whole draft, didn't draft a wide receiver. And on our show in the second round, we were all saying, oh, Dallas should trade a second-round pick for Pickens. And then they didn't take a wide receiver at all.
Nope.
And the story has it that they had offered a fourth-round pick. And we had all said on draft night that a current year pick in a certain round is as good as a pick in the better round the following year. So a fourth this year has a value of a third next year. Right?
Why is that?
No, wait, sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's yeah, that's right. Because a fourth this year gets you a player this year versus a third next year. You have to wait a year to get that player services. So, trading for future picks always has a little bit of a discount. The easiest example I can think of is the year we drafted Isaiah Loudermilk in the middle of the 5th round. We traded a future 4th round pick for that mid 5th round pick, and that was the exact trade.
Stupid fucking trade.
It was, but nevertheless, that was the move that was made. So to me, this Pickens deal, and I think I said it on Slack and on Twitter, it wasn't a fleecing in either respect. I think it was fair market value for both teams, right? That if we didn't trade Pickens, he played the year out with us. If he got a top of the market contract, which is still a big if, then we'd be looking at a 3rd round comp pick in 2027, which is essentially end of the 3rd round, almost beginning of the 4th. So we improved that by a year by getting a 3rd round pick in 2026. And then the late round pick swap in 2027 was a little bit of a sweetener, but whatever. That's that's basically just a slight sweetener 2 drafts away. And the Cowboys reportedly aren't going to sign him to a long-term deal and are going to let him play out this year. So they've essentially thinking in the same veins, traded a 3rd round pick next year in 26 for what could turn into a 3rd round comp pick in 27. So playing the long game here, I think it winds up pretty much even for both teams. And, maybe he goes off and has a big year for Dallas, who considers themselves probably a lot closer to contending than we are. So maybe not. But I think as far as market goes, it's probably about right, considering Antonio Brown got a 3rd and a 5th in the current year. I mean, Chase Claypool getting a 2nd was absolutely insane. But thank you, Ryan Poles. But I think overall this is probably about fair market value. And just one final thought before I stop talking. You mentioned my name being Howard Johnson, both a Blazing Saddles reference and potentially a reference to our future backfield this year. I don't know if Aaron's in the chat, but Will Howard and Caleb Johnson in the backfield. So
outstanding.
And a mid-level hotel chain, So
very mid-level.
Maybe we'll make t-shirts.
We touched upon something earlier today in the Slack chat, and it's just that Mike Tomlin has apparently developed a reputation as a guy who can handle these difficult players, and that when he gives up on somebody who's super talented, that maybe you shouldn't buy that player. Someone tweeted it out today and said the Cowboys broke the cardinal rule: never buy a wide receiver that Mike Tomlin is selling. I saw that and started laughing my ass off. I was like, yeah.
And my response to that was that when you've been around as long as Tomlin has, you're going to establish patterns. And I think that was a spot on comment.
But I think within our group, Ian was the first one to point out that the wide receivers that have left for the most part have not done very well. I mean, Juju's got a couple of rings, but he hasn't been super productive. And the other guys, even AB, he suited up 7 more times after he left. 7 more games.
It's crazy.
That was it. It's
Emmanuel Sanders is the bar, and he wasn't traded. He was a free agent.
Yeah, he was superfluous. They had what's his name? They had Mike. They had AB and they had Mike Wallace. Mike Wallet. I called him at the time.
And
when he left in free agency too.
Yeah, he did. And we got a 3rd round comp pick.
And he actually wasn't too bad after he, I was talking about this week. Emmanuel Sanders has like almost 10,000 career receiving yards. And I didn't even think of that. And I went back and looked, and only a quarter of them are from his time with the Steelers.
Yeah.
So like but for every Emmanuel, you're right. For every Emmanuel Sanders, the Steelers, you have, Antonio Brown won a Super Bowl, but his production basically was cut in half. He rarely played. Mike Wallace was okay, but like Chase Claypool.
Wow, man.
Chase Claypool is
off a cliff.
That was highway robbery.
Scarps, you were in the organization when AB was there, and you know things. And I'm not. I think the natural thing to do here is to try to compare Pickens to AB, because I think anybody who's listening and watching this show knows how ridiculously talented George Pickens is, from his hands to his athletic ability.
Is he really though?
Well, I'm not saying that he knows does all the routes and everything else, but he's just as an athlete, I think he's pretty damn good.
Body control,
yeah. What I'm getting at though is clearly it was the lack of maturity, the behavior that led to this trade. Okay, so in your mind, in knowing what you know about AB and stuff, how would you compare these two situations?
You can tell somebody on this podcast is a high school teacher.
Maybe.
I mean, I would say off the top of my head that one of the differences between Pickens and AB is that AB knew that he wasn't the most talented or athletic wide receiver. 5'11", 185, didn't have the best speed, but he caught pretty much everything thrown his way. He was a great route runner.
Amazing.
He had, I mean, him and I mean this, and I know him and I had a little Twitter beef back in the day, but like him and Ben had an unbelievable chemistry. Like there is no question that like they both really benefited from playing together. But the thing about AB was that he knew that he wasn't as gifted as everybody else, but he knew he was going to have to work twice as hard as everybody else.
And so he did.
And he did. He did.
Mhm.
And, catching 500, footballs off the jugs machine at the end of practice every day. Like AB set the tone, man. He did. And yes, he was immature. He did stupid shit off the field, but he set the tone. And he was always in meetings. He always like it's not really to say like he necessarily took receivers under his wing, but like the way he worked
It was hard not to follow that example.
all that you needed. But for Pickens, yeah, he has talent. I mean, yes, he makes some circus catches. I don't think he's as good as he thinks he is, or all of his fans think he is.
Mhm.
But his whole life, he has been that guy, right? He's been that freak.
Yep.
He's been the most athletic. He hasn't had to work as hard because it comes naturally. And
True.
that's not good, because and then also too, he was the oldest receiver in the room. Like at one point, and Deontay's a little bit older than him, so they didn't have that Jericho Cotchery DHB type.
Right.
Right.
I mean, now they do in Robert Woods, and DK is a little bit older, but like, Pickens, I think they expected Pickens to take a leap with consistency at the receiver position, but leadership at the receiver position. And he did not take advantage of either one.
Mm-mm.
So it's really hard to compare him and AB, but I would say that AB's production on the field made up for any of his flaws off the field, or just him being a little crazy. And
being a pain in the ass is a superstar privilege. And Antonio Brown was a superstar. Okay, I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a fucking pain in the ass, it is a superstar privilege. And yes, you hit the nail on the head, Scarps, when you said he was among the oldest guys in the room, and he was certainly the most talented guy they had last year. And they expected him to step up and take on a leadership role, and he didn't. He was like, yeah, whatever. That ain't me. I'm not doing it. I wanted to make one more point about this trade, and it's just that Dallas was the only team offering anything.
And just real quick to clarify that, Ben, there were reports that teams were giving a fourth.
Dallas offered the fourth. Other teams were calling and saying, what would it take?
Yeah.
And Omar was telling him he wanted a second, and they were going, okay, never mind.
Yep.
So there were no offers from any other teams.
No.
Dallas was offering a fourth and the pick swap, I guess. And after the draft, since they hadn't drafted a wide receiver, I don't know if Omar reached out or they reached out, and it was, hey, can we do this deal? We'll make it a third. Okay, sure, let's do it. So they worked it out. That was that. Pickens is off to Dallas, and you got a dude here who is late to meetings, is late all the time. He's late to games, to multiple games.
Yeah.
So when he was late on Christmas, he was late after the inactives were reported. They were just like, oh, whatever, it's fine. That's just George. They're conditioned to it because that's who George was.
Right.
He couldn't be reached by the coaches. He couldn't be reached by his captains. He was an asshole. He yelled at fans. He sulked. He took plays off. As far as I'm concerned, that's a perfect Dallas Cowboy. Perfect. He'll fit right in.
Mike DeFabo at The Athletic did a really nice job today, kind of going down this laundry list of things that Mike Tomlin really went out of his way to protect George Pickens, defend George Pickens, and
he
and
does
then
have all those players.
Yeah, absolutely. And then he got to the comment, I believe after, was it the Cincinnati game, when he said he needs to grow up, and
that was big.
Yeah, that's where the relationship changed. That's where everything seemed to change. And so I guess now
to me it was the way he played in the Dallas game.
Yeah, yes, no doubt about it.
He was a little bitch. Like he quit on plays. He quit on plays where the ball was coming to him.
Yeah.
It's just like, dude, and then Dallas trades for him anyway. That I can't believe. But it's Jerry Jones, It's Jerry fucking Jones. He's taken chances on lots of players like this before, and sometimes it's worked out for him, and so he's hoping it's going to again.
So, Ian, you've obviously seen a lot of fan reaction and stuff. How would you talk to a Steelers fan and try to get them to understand that this was the right move?
Okay, it's not good.
Wow. So many ways.
Well,
I think the easiest thing to say though is the way Pickens approached being a professional. That's not the kind of guy that you win with. And I know I'm stealing from Ryan here, but Ryan's been saying this all along, and he's right. This isn't the kind of guy that you win with, and they weren't going to pay him anyway. So at most he was going to play one more year. And go back to that Cincinnati game. I mean, Ben mentioned the Dallas game, but that Cincinnati game was a game they had to win. And he had 6 or 7 targets, caught one ball, had slant routes where on third down that the ball hit him in the hands, and he just looked totally lackadaisical and didn't care out there. And I think we all said put freaking Ben Skoranek or someone who will at least try out there. Pickens is insanely athletically gifted, but Melvin hit it on the head in the chat that AB was hungry and Pickens has been fed all his life, that he takes whole games off, not just plays, but whole games. And when you're a team fighting for contention for a playoff spot, you can't have that. And for everything people want to say about how talented and how good George Pickens is and everything else, right? Last year, he averaged 3.6 yards after catch per reception. That is 110th out of wide receivers in the league. So that's taking out tight ends, running backs, everything else. 110th in the league in
George
yards after the catch.
He's a catch it and fall down guy.
Not just but part of that's effort and want to, and some of it's just heart and tenacity, right? Like you said, Ben, that Antonio Brown wasn't the biggest, the fastest, the most athletically gifted guy.
Ryan said that, but
Ryan
said right.
That, and he was right. But he wanted it, right? He wanted it. And
AB outworked everyone in the fucking league. And if anybody said that somebody was as good as AB, he took it personal and worked even fucking harder. And that's what you need. And that's why the dude's a Hall of Famer. And yes, he was a pain in the fucking ass. But it's a superstar privilege, man. That is a superstar privilege. If you're not that guy, you can't do it.
Yeah, fans become too attached to the player, not the team. I couldn't agree more at times. And as you scrolled through social media and watch the reactions, that's where people were.
What was the comment that Aaron made this season? And I'm maybe paraphrasing, but he said, I would rather watch the Steelers go 0-17 than OSU lose to Michigan 4 times in a row. And I was like, dude, that's fucked up priorities, first of all. And second, what the fuck? Who gives a shit about OSU?
Absolutely.
This is why I hate people from Ohio State. And he doesn't understand it, but this is why, because you guys have fucked up priorities. Yeah. Columbus is second. Pittsburgh is first. Right. Columbus is second.
I would argue Columbus probably 6th.
Okay, that's fine.
I'd put
but if you live in Ohio, it should be second. If Columbus was second and you lived in Ohio, I get it. Okay. Yeah. But Columbus is never first. Right. Never, ever.
It's Sandusky's better.
On that note, the interview that Jack Sawyer and Will Howard did on Ben Roethlisberger's podcast, which is not as good as our show, obviously,
slightly worse,
but those two guys were incredibly mature, and I thought had some really good perspectives and outlooks on the game and on working hard, and that. Jack Sawyer, to me, and I think I said this before the draft too, he's not the most athletic, not the most gifted, but he's the kind of guy you can win with, right? He's got the work ethic and want to and grittiness. Maybe he's just a career special teams player, which for a fourth round pick is fine.
All right. Yeah.
But nevertheless, it that's the kind of attitudes you need in the locker room.
I think that
Yeah.
Sawyer is going to be a specialist in so much as he's going to be an edge setter.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
he's going to be a special teamer. But I want to make one quick point about that podcast since you brought it up. How do you think Mason Rudolph felt watching two rookies who've never played a snap be on Ben's show with him?
I try.
Scarps,
I'll let.
How do you think he felt,
Scarps? Let me get this point in, and then I'll turn it over to you, Scarps.
No, go ahead.
All I was going to say is that I defended Big Ben for a long time with the whole Mason stuff. I really can't anymore. It's clear he just didn't like Mason.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's okay. I think it was a dick behavior at times, but it is what it is. There's people in our lives we just don't always like. Anyway, I'll turn to Scarps. What do you think about that?
Yeah, we got some wrestling fans that listen in.
Wrestling.
Ben could put Mason over by bringing him on the podcast, right? And that could be a really good story. I'm a PR person here. Ben sitting down with Mason, being like, "Hey, yeah, you know what, man? I didn't like that they drafted you because I thought we could better build the offense because we still had a run in us. But you know what? Looking back on that, I know it wasn't your fault. I don't blame the organization either. I just, I hope you can understand that." And Mason, with that beautiful goatee, looking like Josh Brolin, can look at Ben and say, "Ben, you know what? I forgive you." And then just when you thought they made up, he kicks Ben right in the nuts, and Mason turns full heel. No, it is very strange, and I wasn't there. And I don't know Mason, and I want to say I know Ben, but I just think Ben was a little pissed off that they drafted.
Oh, he was.
I was too.
Yeah, and it's the way it is, but I
thought it was a wasted draft pick. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah,
it was the draft pick they acquired when they traded away Martavis, and it was like, so you gave up an excellent wide receiver. That one I hated, who just couldn't get his shit together. He just could not stop smoking weed, but he really needed the Steelers, and the Steelers needed him. Like that was a dude who needed the Steelers support system as much as anyone in the world, and he just. When he was going someplace else, he wasn't going to get the same kind of love. He wasn't,
No.
And he immediately, his career went. But that dude, to trade him for Mason fucking Rudolph, I was like, I knew when they drafted him that he fucking sucked. And people were like, "Oh yeah, this is great, Ben's successor. He can hold the clipboard for a few years." Blah blah. No, he's not. He sucks.
Yeah, and again, and you all know how I feel. Mason is not great. He's not terrible.
No, but he's
he's
a okay. Backup though, right?
He's okay. Right? He's a Steelers freak. Don't be stealing my Casey tonight. All right, just give me a second. But talking about Rodgers. Actually, let me make one final Pickens point, and I got to use the
and I have another avenue I want to go down with.
Okay, let me one final Pickens point, and
I got a beer.
Facilities, but you would have thought, and I mean this, you would have thought we traded AB in his prime based on the reactions and.
Agree.
Pickens' numbers, and I know numbers aren't everything, and I know the QB play wasn't that great, but Pickens' numbers among pass catchers in team history he's at the bottom in nearly every category except for Mark Malone. I need to find out who that is. He always keeps me entertained.
Mark is in town,
but there are plenty of wide receivers in league history that didn't have the greatest quarterback and still put up numbers. I mean, Christ, Larry Fitzgerald didn't have a quarterback for 75% of his career, and he's considered probably top 5 wide receiver of all time. Malik Neighbors this year had a huge year, and he was catching passes from Daniel Jones, Tommy Coldcuts, Who else did they have start? Did Drew Lock?
Drew Lock.
Drew
Yeah.
Lock started a game. So,
Yeah.
like, when you're good, you're good. And I just don't think Pickens is ever going to be that guy. He might think he is, and his fans might think he is. And you know
Yeah.
what? Unless CeeDee Lamb gets hurt, he's not going to be that guy this year. So,
I think that he could be that guy is the thing.
because
Everybody
CD gets
sees-
doubled.
No. Everybody. I'm not saying he's going to do it this year. I'm saying that if he worked his ass off, if he actually applied himself, he could be that guy. So every coach sees a player like that and thinks, I can motivate that guy. I can do this. In fact, not only do they think it, they believe it. They arrogantly
Absolutely.
believe it.
Absolutely.
They're like, no, I can coach that guy up. Don't tell me I can't reach that guy.
That
I
is
can
a
do it.
Classic fault of many coaches.
Oh, fuck yeah. All of them.
Yep.
And I get
Last
it.
thought.
You have to be.
Okay.
You have to believe that if you're going to be a good coach.
Yeah, true.
But last thought. But
Yeah.
don't you think his best situation was in Pittsburgh with Mike Tomlin? And Mike Tomlin says, and apparently Mike Tomlin was the one who initiated this trade. And if Mike Tomlin doesn't believe in you anymore, do you really think Brian Schottenheimer is going to be the wide receiver whisperer? Because I don't.
I mean, let's be honest. The head coach in Dallas really has no say over the roster or even really who plays.
Nah, it's Jera.
That's Jerry's. I mean,
Yeah.
if somebody doesn't like what the head coach says, they just go to Jerry, and Jerry solves the problem or solves a dispute.
Yeah.
That's got to be, seriously, that has to be the worst head coaching job in the league, aside from maybe the Jets.
Yeah, it's right up there. There's no question. I want to move to how this impacts the Steelers. Pickens is gone. And many fans look at this as, oh shit, we're right back to where we used to be. We had a guy, and now we don't have a guy across from him, and So, Ben, what do the Steelers do? Do you think they're going to add somebody? I mean, there's a lot of talk about Alan Lazard, especially if Rodgers comes. I mean, is Robert Woods capable of this? I mean, what are they going to do?
He's not so much anymore.
Right.
They signed him to basically a minimum contract. It's a little bit more than that, but it's not a lot of money. So they're bringing him in to be, to be a fourth wide receiver / run blocker. One of the things that Woods excels at is blocking. Gabe Davis was cut by the Jaguars today. He's another guy who excels at run blocking. I think they should sign him because he has $11.5 million guaranteed this season that has to be paid by the Jaguars. So whoever signs him is getting him on a minimum deal. I would sign him tomorrow and bring him in.
Hate it.
Yeah, bring him in because I'm thinking of the guy that he used to play in Buffalo and had some nice seasons there. Not great, nothing to write home about. Number 3 wide receiver who blocks well, but you need guys like that. So I would sign him. Alan Lazard is, I'm sorry, that is clearly Aaron Rodgers bait because he likes that guy.
Yes.
And so now they're talking about trading for him. If the Steelers trade for him, they only owe him $2.5 million. I wouldn't give up much for Alan Lazard.
No,
I don't think he's in the Jets' plans. I think they'll cut him before the season starts.
And doesn't it kind of defeat the purpose of stockpiling all these picks if you just go and, let's say, burn one on a guy like that, or burn one?
It depends on what you burn. If you burn a 7th round pick, no.
Yeah, not a big deal.
If you burn a 4th, yeah, that's a 4th or a 5th and a 1-year rental. Come on, can we not do that? It used to bug the shit out of me when Kevin Colbert did it. He would burn 5th round picks on guys that were 1-year rentals, and some of them didn't even stay for the whole season.
Melvin asked about Amari Cooper. I don't see it. I think I agree with you, Ben, that Gabe Davis is a better blocker. And I think that's probably going to be more of a priority right now for this offense than some of the route running type things.
Given our quarterback situation, this team is 100% a run team. Run first.
Yes.
Now that could change. Rodgers obviously likes to sling it, and he's going to run his own offense. So we'll see. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
By the way,
he's not a Steeler yet.
I would just like to comment that Freak is enjoying some Marilyn Monroe weed tonight. He claims it comes in a package with 2 really big buds. Freak.
Is that like 2 friendly guys?
Something like that. Shit, that was
Freak,
funny as
I'm
hell.
telling you, man. I tell you.
What the hell are you drinking, Scarps?
Great. Yeah, what is everyone
These
drinking
are,
tonight?
These are new. I saw these the other day. Cayman Jacks. They're ready to go.
Oh, yes.
Ready to go margaritas. I love me a margarita.
I love margaritas too, but not out of a can.
Margarita in a can.
I drink. Somebody once gave me toilet wine. It was margarita.
I'll bet they made it in prison. That's where they learned how to make that.
Well, I think Melvin was asking, or was it just beer tonight? I mean, I did have a little bit of Cliff's Tennessee sour mash.
I'm almost out of that. I'm almost out of that. My girlfriend was just here, and she hit the bottle while she was here. I was like, God,
whoa! She had some of your Tennessee sour mash.
Yeah. Imagine that. She helps herself to my booze.
Unbelievable.
So I'm drinking the Ecliptic Phaser Hazy.
Oh, that's right. That's been a part. Yeah, I've also got some War Pigs Brewing, my Foggy Geezer Hazy.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfectly named beer for Mark.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, anyway. A run team that can't block, Robert. Boy, we shall see, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're going to be improved this year on that count, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Scarpino, you wanted to make a point.
I just, personal feelings aside, I do think their wide receiver room just got worse. I'm not going to deny that, but
from a talent standpoint, no argument.
Long term,
right?
But thinking long term, they've been rebuilding. They have to field a team though, and this is what it's going to look like. So if this is what it's going to look like, and honestly, everybody there's a lot of people still assume that Aaron Rodgers is coming here, and I don't know. No. I don't know.
No. Neither do I.
But look at it.
I know I'm sick of his shit already, and he's not a Steeler.
The available free agents, and they gave Davis actually. He's the youngest of the bunch, but he failed physical.
Yeah. So, do we know what the
he had a meniscus injury?
Meniscus. Okay.
But was it meniscus? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it was something in his knee, but it kind of felt like they were just looking for a reason to cut him.
And so he's the youngest of the bunch. I mean, he's missed games, but he was big for Buffalo. Josh Allen and him had a connection. We don't have a Josh Allen, but here's a name that I'm going to throw out there, and he is not. I mean, he's not young, but he could still run, and that's Nelson Aguilar.
Yeah.
He's a potential. I'm just saying, it's not good, but the dude could maybe take the top off of defense. But Robert Woods 5 years ago, I would have loved.
Sure.
Jamison Crowder is on the Commanders practice squad, and we've talked about him many times on the show. I would have loved to have that guy 5 years ago. There's nobody currently right now. So, I look at the Steelers wide receiver room right now, and I see a lot of guys that are small. Calvin Austin is not going to be
Scotty Miller, baby.
I mean, Calvin Austin might be
they're
okay.
bigger than they were last year, but way too many slot receivers. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And then if you're really putting your eggs in that Roman Wilson basket, you might as well just toss those eggs out the window, man, because that dude couldn't stay healthy. He couldn't even get on the field because he didn't know the playbook. I mean, that's typical from the Michigan guys.
Here we go.
But, hey, listen, I have no horse in this race. I want to make fun of Ohio State and Michigan tonight.
And that's fine.
All right, I'm done.
Yeah, Ian, are you 100% convinced that this is all about 2026, as we've kind of been saying, but this really seems to solidify it?
Oh yeah, this is definitely they've they're kind of doing what Buffalo did before they drafted Josh Allen, right? That Buffalo tried to add guys at complementary positions, offensive line, defensive line, things like that, so that they would be ready to compete when they got the guy they thought was going to be their franchise quarterback. And Buffalo lucked out that they got Josh Allen and not Josh Rosen, but nevertheless, the Steelers are kind of doing the same thing in that they're drafting offensive linemen, they're drafting defensive linemen, they drafted a running back this year. They're trying to, they traded for a wide receiver and gave him the biggest contract in Steelers history. So they're trying to put these pieces in place. They'll go out and be competitive in some games this year, right? This team's not bad. We say a lot this roster is bad. They're not bad enough to be like a 2 or 3 win team. Like, they probably have 5 or 6 wins in them that they can pull out of their hat because that's what they do. But they're as they are right now, and I've said all along that I think they're better off this year with Mason Rudolph than they are with Aaron Rodgers. Mason could come in and legitimately win 8 games and just be like, which is kind of the worst case scenario, right? We've said all along that 5 wins or 11 wins is better than 8 or 9 wins. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think they're really focused on the 2026 draft, especially since it's in Pittsburgh, for the time to be aggressive and go up and get a quarterback.
No doubt. No doubt.
And as much as I like everything Will Howard has said publicly about, even in the pre-draft process, I don't think anything Will Howard does this year precludes you from going and getting a quarterback next year in the draft.
No, I the only exception to that, you guys can agree or disagree, is you would literally have to have a Ben Roethlisberger type situation where your starter, let's assume it's Mason, gets hurt early on in the season, and you've got to play him, and the team just does well, and he plays mistake-free football and does a nice job. That's the only way I could even see it. But even then, I still think they would look for a more dynamic, franchise type QB. So, I mean, that's my thought on it. Anyway, we haven't really talked, guys, since day 2 of the draft, because we took that following week off. And obviously everybody that was here for the first round show and then the day 2 show, you kind of know where we fell with the selections of Derek. I keep wanting to say Derek Brooks, but no, Derek Harmon and some of the other guys. But what about the late rounds? What about the undrafted free agents? I mean, Ben, anybody that jumped out at you right away that you think can be a contributor for this team?
I like the Will Howard pick as a value pick in the 6th round.
Agree.
I don't think that he's going to be. I don't think he's going to get a helmet this year. Now, he may dress, but I think he's going to be the 3rd round, the 3rd quarterback.
So do you think, just throwing this out there, do you think he would be behind Skylar Thompson if the room stays the way it is now?
No, I'm assuming they're going to add a quarterback.
I see. Okay. I wanted to clarify that. Yeah.
What's his name? Rock Johnson. He looks interesting. He's an UDFA.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, that's a boomer bust guy, but he can also do some returning. Which was interesting to me. I don't think the slot corner they took in the 7th, what's his name? Dante
Kent.
Jackson?
Yeah.
Dante Kent.
Dante Kent.
I don't think he's going to make the team. I'll be surprised. I think he's just a little bit athletically limited.
Mm-hmm. Good straight line speed, but not
great
much
straight line speed, but no wiggle. He was a punt returner in college, but again, he just was he was a one cut and go guy.
Yeah.
As a punt returner in the NFL, you can't be that guy. That was one of the things that Antonio Brown, we were talking about earlier. The reason that he was such a good punt returner was his short area quickness was ridiculous.
Wicked.
And he worked hard at it. Jack Sawyer, I think he's going to be limited. He's just not.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a good athlete. He's got short arms, super strong, not much in terms of wiggle either way. Sure tackler, but nothing to write home about. Y.A. Black. Clearly, the Steelers feel that he is going to make the team because they immediately cut Monty Adams. And I think they cut Adams as a courtesy. They're basically saying, look, man, we want to give you a chance to catch on someplace else, which is the right thing to do in those circumstances, in my opinion. So not really going to fault him for that. These are depth pieces. These are not guys that are going to be that are going to be big players. I don't anticipate that Will Howard is going to get it in play.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't anticipate that if he does, it's going to be super impressive. Again, he just doesn't have the arm. I think the kid's got plenty of moxie.
Oh yeah. Love the attitude, man.
Yeah.
Love it.
Exactly. Love it. I agree with you. But I don't think that he's going to contribute this year. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, Freak, I just want to mention Ian will actually be the MC for the draft in Pittsburgh. I
wish that would be amazing.
He'll be announcing several of the picks for the Steelers, just so you know. Scarps, we laughed about this because we knew it was coming, but we suspected that the Steelers were going to continue the nepotism train and draft either Mark Bruner's kid or perhaps Ryan Clark's kid, and they went with Bruner's kid, the linebacker out of Washington. And I mean, I like him. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's a ball player. He hustles. He's a tackler. He's better in coverage than a lot of linebackers. But I mean, did we really need a linebacker?
He's a special teams guy.
I think so too. I think he's strictly special teams.
Yeah, it's just I mean, he's a 7th round pick. I mean, how many 7th round picks do you really, do you knock it? Like Brock Purdy comes to mind, obviously, but Kelvin Beachum was a 6th,
7th.
Yeah, he was a 7 also.
Kelvin Beachum. So
Kelvin Beachum was a compensatory 7.
Yeah,
and he is still in the league. He just re-signed like a 1-year deal. So
did he? I don't know. He's had a long career though, dude. That guy has all my respect. He's really carved out a nice career.
It is just funny that they picked the blood.
You knew it was coming.
Someone in the organization. I mean,
damn, this is good.
I almost want. If they would have drafted Tomlin's kid, I would have fucking laughed so hard. And he got
an invite.
To the Buccaneers?
He is. He's down in Tampa.
He got an invite.
And who coached at Tampa?
Tryout.
Yeah, exactly. Who got a ring while he was coaching in Tampa?
It's a tryout. It's not anything else.
Right.
And Ryan Clark's kid, the same thing. He got a tryout, but didn't get anything else. He wasn't even signed as a UDFA. So, it kind of tells you what teams think of these guys.
It's just I don't know. It's so on par for this organization.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, do you think that's what happens is they get into that 7th round and they're like, hell with it. It doesn't matter who we draft. Let's just draft one of our former players guys,
I mean, I hate to say this, but I hope that's not the way they think.
I agree.
And I'm not saying, again, and I want to make sure Mark Bruner, wonderful human being, loved working with him. Like one of the most upbeat, positive dudes. Like he is a guy that you want in your corner at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure his son is a wonderful human being as well. Decent football player.
Right.
But, I know I say that, you find a diamond in the rough when it comes to 7th round picks, but
sure.
Maybe there was somebody else. Was there somebody else available that's going to turn into a hindsight's 2020?
Of course.
Shit. I just as soon as they made the pick, I was like,
you knew it, right?
Like, oh my God. Like
you guys are a couple of haters.
No,
that's
but
what we do on this program.
I just looked at the the front office staff
Yeah.
on the website. I haven't looked at it in a while. I looked at it before the show, and like there's a Rooney scouting intern. There's
a Colbert.
There's Dan Colbert's obviously there as well. It's like there's a lot of last names that match like prominent people with the organization. I'm
Danny Smith's kid's there now too, right?
Hey,
it's his nephew.
So, I will give props and respect to Danny Rooney, who's worked his way up from the bottom.
Oh, young Dan's great. Young Dan's great.
He's every friggin' job in the organization, and
and
obviously
outside the organization.
Yeah, they're grooming him for a bigger role.
Yes.
Later when Art decides he's going to retire, but it's cool that he started at the bottom and worked all the way through. Where Art was off being a lawyer and then got hired by his dad later.
Young Dan was a scouting intern. He was a coaching intern. He left to do the whole league he did the whole league program. So like, Danny has paid his dues, and you're right. He is going to take over that team one day. It just is funny. It's just funny though. Like it's just, I mean, in 4 years, they're gonna 4 years. They're probably gonna draft like Taylor's kid in the 7th round.
James Harrison's kid too.
And then I'll feel really old.
Well, wait, Ike's kid is at Notre Dame now, isn't he? Like a senior?
No, I think
he's not quite a senior.
Because like him. The Bus's kid are all in the same. Like one of those three will get drafted by this team.
Him, Clark, and the Taylor. Yeah, all those kids are on the same team. But I thought that Ike's kid was a senior. I guess
didn't Ike's kid transfer somewhere though?
They both. Ike's kid transferred in, and Clark's kid transferred in.
Okay,
but Clark's
kid's at Alabama.
Ryan Clark's kid was like a sixth-year senior. He was a COVID kid.
Yeah, you're right.
No, Ike's son is a freshman in Alabama.
Ike's, are you sure?
Okay, so he transferred out.
Remember seeing a photo of the three boys.
He signed
with their dads.
He signed with Alabama over Notre Dame and Michigan.
Okay.
Oh.
So in 3 to 4 years.
Transfer portal.
Ivan Taylor will be a Steeler.
Oh, no doubt about it.
And bless his heart. I'm so old. I remember when Ivan Taylor was like 5 years old, man, running around the locker room.
You were playing catch with him on the fields at Latrobe, weren't you?
Hey, Hey, Ryan, man, make sure my kid's all right. Sure, man. Okay.
Hey, if Bettis' kid can run through,
babysit, whatever,
and get 3 yards and a cloud of dust, or whatever the hell Jerome used to get, hey, great, I'm good with that. If not, no.
Mm-hmm.
One other thought on Bruner. The one thing that kind of, I don't want to say surprised me, but what are they going to do at inside linebacker? Because they're not going to keep 6, and they have Queen, Holcomb, Wilson, Malik Harrison, who they signed, Carson Bruner, and Mark Robinson. I mean, I got to think Mark Robinson's gone at this point, but I mean, that's 6 guys. I mean, maybe you keep 4 of those.
Remember the year they kept 10 linebackers?
Yeah.
It's true. But
I mean, it's not unheard of. But I think they're going to keep 10 DBs.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
so if you keep 10 DBs, and you got 28 spots on defense, because
25. It's usually 25 offense, 25 defense. Give or take.
So
25.
All right, 25 or 26, because usually it's a little heavier on defense because those guys play teams.
Yeah.
So it's those last couple of spots are up to Danny Smith, but no, I agree with you. I guess that does make sense. 25. No, hang on.
Okay.
If you kept 10 DBs, which I think they're going to keep 10 DBs.
Yeah.
And you kept 9 or 10 linebackers, and you kept 6 defensive linemen, which they typically do.
Right.
That'd be 25. If you kept 10 linebackers, that'd be 26.
Well, I mean, let's assume that all 4 outside backers stay healthy. Do you need any more than 4?
No.
So I mean, I can see maybe sliding in a 5th inside, but I don't see any way in hell you're going to keep 6.
I think one of the reasons they took Harrison, though, was they thought he could play inside outside.
But move him around a little bit.
They're going to try and teach him outside linebacker, in my opinion, and he's certainly going to be a teams guy.
He seems light for an outside linebacker, but
doesn't he?
Probably just a rush guy, I would think.
But looking back at his history, he's done a bit of both. Yeah, exactly. Just a pass rush specialist.
He's
but
not
also
there to set edges.
Yeah, but also a guy who can play inside.
Yeah, no, I agree.
God damn,
Ian,
this is good whiskey.
Ian, where do you?
Fuck, this is delicious.
How would you rate Omar Khan right now? Has he taken a bit of a hit? I mean, is he still the con artist?
He is him. Just kidding.
No, I mean, I kind of felt like this was overall, other than Harmon, who I'm really excited about, I felt like this was kind of a solid like B draft. If I had to give it a grade, like B minus draft. Like,
okay.
No one other than Harmon really excites me, but there was no pick where I was like, that was an awful pick, right? Every pick I understand. You know, the Bruner kid being a special teamer, he's got some pretty good athleticism.
Yes.
For a 7th round pick, okay, take a flyer on him. Sawyer in the 4th round, did we need an outside linebacker? No, but I mean, there were people that had him as like a mid 2nd round pick, so that's a value pick there where you're like,
right,
he's in there in the 4th round and is just the best player left on our board.
And they just got gouged for 300 yards rushing in a playoff game.
Right.
Also true.
Right. So there was no pick where I was like, I don't understand this. They were all, even the Kent kid in the 7th round, I'm like, okay, slot corner with punt return ability. Okay, take a flyer on him, see what happens in the preseason. But it wasn't anything where I was like, this guy was such a steal. This guy's going to be great. Even when we drafted George Pickens in the 2nd round, we were basically saying this guy has insane athleticism and could be really good if he can get his head on straight, which obviously he didn't. But nevertheless, it was still a pick with a lot of upside. Whereas, Caleb Johnson, yeah, he's a really nice running back, but he runs with some high pad level. His 40 time wasn't great, but on tape he looks a lot faster. So he's a good one-cut runner for the Arthur Smith system. I think he can be fine. But all these picks, I was kind of like, they're fine, but they're not great, but they're not terrible. So I'd say like a B minus kind of draft. And overall, I think the other thing that I do like about Omar Khan, and I will give him credit where it's due, is that he has not been afraid to move on from guys who have not been good team players. He didn't let their contracts expire. He's like, nope, I'm going to get you out of the building. He got rid of Deontay Johnson, got rid of Kenny Pickett, got rid of George Pickens, and those were all guys who, for one reason or another, were issues in the locker room, whether it was Kenny Pickett not wanting to dress because he wasn't going to start, or whether it was Deontay just being,
a
an
bitch.
Absolute, yeah.
Telling all the quarterbacks they sucked.
Yeah. So I do have to give him credit for that.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, it's been 3 years, and
right.
Kevin Colbert.
Yeah, Cliff, you're right.
Kevin Colbert was a really good general manager for the first part of his career at finding future all pros in the 1st round. I mean, he had that run of 7 or 8 years in a row where he drafted an all pro player in the 1st round. And that doesn't happen all the time. No. So I think Khan's been fine. I think he was a little maybe overhyped for some things that people gave him a little too much credit for, but he's been willing to be aggressive and make moves. The end of the Kevin Colbert era, I love Kevin Colbert, but the end of the Colbert era, he kind of sat on his hands a little bit and seemed a little tentative about making moves, whether it was in the draft, whether it was trades, things like that. Yeah, he traded for Minka, but Khan has been willing to move on from guys ahead of the end of their rookie contract if they didn't fit in the room. So I'd still say, probably about a B or so for the Omar Khan era, right?
I'm going to give it an A minus. I'm going to give it an A minus, and I'm going to steal one of the points you've been making from the very beginning, which is they traded a 2nd round pick for DK Metcalf. Yeah, they paid him a lot of money, but it's a good solid B draft, which is enhanced by the fact that 2nd round pick they burned they got a player who's better than they possibly could have gotten in the second round.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That dude's a first round talent. You burned a second rounder for it. Yes, you're paying a lot for him as a player, but he's earned that money. So kind of is what it is at this point.
Scarps, how much influence do you think Mike Tomlin has right now versus what he had with Kevin Colbert?
It's a good question.
Well, and I do ask that with the understanding that I don't think any of us really know to the extent.
It has always been Art. It was always Art, Kevin, and Mike, the big three.
Big three.
And I want to say it's the same thing now. But I know Omar is not a football guy. He's not.
No, that's why he hired Kevin Weidl.
Yeah.
He's not. Andy Weidl's there.
Andy
is the football guy.
I've had some drinks. Sorry.
And then they brought in Sheldon White. So they have a good group of football guys. Omar is not a football guy. He's not.
Doesn't it speak to his character? To his character that he acknowledged as much and hired guys to take care of his shortcomings.
So I will say, So while Omar is he's not a personnel guy.
Yes,
let's say that. He is a football guy. Omar started there in the early 2000s. He's worked his way up. He obviously has the trust of leadership in the organization. I think he does a good job, but he's not a personnel guy. So I give him credit that they brought in. He brought in people, and then also Kevin Colbert. Also Sheldon White was a reference from Kevin. So I think that Omar's doing a fine job, but I do think Mike might have a little bit more of a say in this relationship, in the big three relationship, now that the general manager is not a personnel guy like Kevin Colbert was. And that's not to say Mike is the end all be all, because he's not, because they have to go through an approval process. But the reports are that Mike is the one that wanted this trade done.
Correct.
And it was approved. This was not an Omar initiated trade. This was a Mike initiated trade. And I tell you what, that really hurts the narrative from the national talking heads, not the band, that say Mike doesn't have a say in the roster. They need to do more for Mike. No, Mike has a say in the roster. Mike is very influential, and
of course he is.
And he's not a dictator or anything like that. It is a checks and balances. It's a democracy, if you will. But Mike has say. Mike has pull, and if you don't think he does, you need to rethink of that.
The thing that I think is ridiculous, though, is Steelers fans seem to think it's like they take this all or nothing approach. Like Tomlin has no say whatsoever, or he has all the say. Like the Steelers do, the Steelers go as Tomlin goes, and whatever Tomlin wants, he gets, and that's the way it is. No, you fucking idiots. That's not the way it works at all. And it never has. The organization has been structured the same way for decades. You have an owner, a general manager. Before that, was the director of player personnel. Before they actually created the general manager position, and the head coach. And those three decided those things together. Even Chuck Noll, who had 4 rings, didn't get to decide who they were picking. He wanted to take John Stallworth in the first round when they took Lynn Swann. Okay?
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
To that point, and I want to answer Bob's question in the chat, because it's one right up my alley, because every single year I get people, so what'd you think of the Steelers draft? What grade would you give it? It's like, ask me in 3 years. So, okay, 2022. So,
let's talk about 2022. What a shitty draft class.
It was terrible.
It sucked donkey balls.
Yeah. You've literally you've got Calvin Austin is still there, Connor Hayward is still there, and I think I'll be honest, I think
let's
his
start.
time is
Kenny
tenuous.
Pickett, who was fucking terrible, and hey, how about that tweet that the Browns put out where they had
my
Lord,
hand
sizes. They
my Lord.
Unintentionally compared the hand sizes of Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. Oh god damn, that was hilarious.
I mean,
then we got George Pickens, who is gone.
We know
that didn't work out. DeMarvin Leal, who has disappointed. Calvin Austin, who's still there. And actually, Calvin Austin might be the best of the bunch because last year he actually stepped up.
Yeah.
He didn't have a great season, but I'd say as a number 3, the dude's pretty solid. He's not great, but he's, as a number 3, I'm fine with that. Connor Hayward is, the annual brother pick. Mark Robinson is about to be gone, and then Chris Oladokun. How do you pronounce that?
Oladokun.
Yeah, he got 3 rings?
I think at least 2. I think he's got 2.
Dude has 2
in
rings
Kansas City
as a third team guy in KC. I mean, good for him, but throwaway draft pick. We lit one on fire, basically. I mean, Yeah,
and that's it. And so when I look at this year's draft, and I will also say this, and this is something that Ben and I I think all of us have preached for years: don't buy rookie jerseys
ever.
Don't do it
ever.
Okay?
Remember when Chris Garman when he bought the TJ Watt jersey his rookie season?
Yeah.
And you and I were like, what
Chris pretty hard.
Fuck. Don't do that. Now, if he fails, it's your fault. Okay, well, he didn't.
No,
Chris got lucky.
Yeah. See, and then you get nut jobs like Aaron, who've already bought their children Will Howard jerseys.
That's fucking dumb.
Dumb. Scarps.
Yeah, I just, I feel like I have to defend Kevin Colbert because he's my dude. But, yes, he was the general manager at the time. And yes, he missed. But I think it's more about they missed. It's again, like there are multiple people involved in these processes. So,
True.
So, you look back, okay, Kenny Pickett, that was, 2022 is Kevin's last draft. Do you really think Kevin had that much influence on that draft? Or did him and his team just say, hey, here's what we think?
Yeah.
I have a
Kenny
theory.
Pickett could be the next franchise guy.
I have a theory about this.
All right, and I'll make a quick point after.
I think that Scarps, and it's about you, Scarps.
Oh,
I think that Scarps has a bone to pick with Mike Tomlin because toward the end of Kevin Colbert's career in Pittsburgh, Mike had a heavier say in drafts than he had in previous draft classes. And that the classes were bad. And let's be honest. Colbert's last 5 draft classes were not very successful classes. They were just not good.
No, they weren't good.
And that Scarps blames the fact that those classes failed on Mike.
No, I do not. I do not.
And that Kevin is his dude, and he's he wants to protect him. Dude, you just said what you just said. His last class, like, did he really have that much say, or was it Mike who's making all the calls?
But I would say this that everybody's shitting on Kevin Colbert, but at the same time, George Pickens was a second-round pick, and apparently we just traded away the greatest wide receiver of all time. So. But I would also say, okay, 2021 Naj first-round pick. We all know Mike loves running backs who tote the rock 1,000 times. Is that all Kevin Colbert? You know what I mean? So whatever. He's part of the problem. I believe they failed, but that whole 3-headed monster at the personnel. Department at making personnel decisions has been around since Cowher was there.
Who made the Terrell Edmonds pick?
I don't know.
That was 18. That was terrible.
Right.
Well,
I'm just curious.
The guy they wanted was gone. Tennessee had taken him.
Right.
And so they had
was
to
that
pivot.
Was it
Rashad Evans? Yeah.
Rashad Evans, linebacker.
And then they needed a safety anyway, so they went ahead and took Edmonds, which I thought was insane at the time.
2 rounds too early.
And I would, two quick points. Alex, a couple quick points. Alex Highsmith is a pretty decent player. Dan Moore was actually a pretty I know that nobody wants to hear that, but Dan Moore is a pretty decent player. And then Devin Bush was great as a rookie, and then he got hurt, and he was never the same.
Nope.
So, and if you want to keep looking back at that, but I'm going to tell you this right now. TJ Watt,
Yeah.
and you could say, oh, well, he fell to them. Did he fall to them, or did they realize his potential? Because, I mean, nobody – like, if TJ Watt was so fucking great and everybody thought he was so great, why didn't the Dallas Cowboys draft him instead of Taco Charlton, right?
Because they're
So,
dumb.
But I want to like, isn't that a credit to Colbert for finding a TJ Watt? Because to me,
No doubt.
if you find a TJ Watt in that, like, doesn't that give you a couple misses, or from the organization, they have failed, but the organization decided to take TJ Watt, who's made four or five all-pro teams. He's one of the best defensive players in the league. So I don't know. Whatever. I talked a lot.
Well, I know what you mean, though. I mean, I get what you're saying.
You're correct.
And I think Watt is also the definition of you can often judge players, you can evaluate players, but sometimes what you can't evaluate is just the sheer will and determination.
One quick thing, and as Robert said, and I'll shut up.
Yeah.
But I do not think Artie Burns was worthy of a first round pick, but they thought he had potential.
Yeah.
But it's funny that Artie Burns is still in the league and still plays. He plays. And so for how terrible somebody is, or how terrible you think somebody is, he's still relevant. Like, he gets snaps.
But the guy that they wanted wasn't there. He'd been taken 2 picks before. And so Artie Burns was their fallback. And it's kind of, I'm sorry, it goes back to my point I made earlier before the draft. And Ian and I had this fucking argument every single year. Drafting for a need is stupid. Take the best player.
Yeah.
Take the best player.
Well, but I guess
if the guy we really want isn't there, we'll take this guy instead because we really need a cornerback. Fuck that shit. Take the best player.
But don't you think they did that? Don't you think they did that this year, though, and people hated it, though? They hated that Jack Sawyer pick, but I thought that was a good pick at that point.
My dog just farted. Jesus Christ.
Whatever. I'm
the
done.
hell? Now there's a segue for you.
I'm done.
Wow.
Okay. Ian, you had a point on the draft stuff.
I was just like,
Ben can make his first.
That was it. The Jacks. Yeah. Did they do that this year? I don't know. Did they take a fallback player? No. I think they wanted Harmon.
Yeah, I think Harmon in the first was a done deal. I
really do. I don't think that Shedeur Sanders obviously was ever a consideration.
No, I don't either.
They passed on him 3 times.
The press conference smoke was exactly that. Yeah. Ian, go ahead. You had a draft thought.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier about Kevin Colbert having some pretty good drafts early in his career, right? So from the time he didn't get the full general manager title, but he was essentially the director of football operations, whatever it was. They didn't have a GM. When he came here in 2000, right? First round picks, Plexico Burress, Casey Hampton, Kendall Simmons, who is kind of mid, but still won a Super Bowl for us. Troy Polamalu, Ben Roethlisberger, Heath Miller, Santonio Holmes.
Simmons was good, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't great. He wasn't a Hall of Famer, but he was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Lawrence Timmons, right? That's 8 years of really darn good first round draft picks.
Yeah.
And I think what happened with Kevin Colbert is he had a process that he was comfortable with. He had football knowledge that he was comfortable with, but the league changed. The league evolved from how it was in the early 2000s. I mean, the Super Bowl we won in 2008, that defense was so good that year, but the league changed so much through the mid 2010s into being a passing oriented league that I don't think necessarily. And that's not to say he had misses there, right? Like Cam Hayward in 2011, David DeCastro the following year. Jarvis Jones was a miss. Shazier was a shocking pick to a lot of, like, I didn't see that one coming, but was a really good player until he got injured. So but like the latter half of the 2010s, TJ Watt aside, but Artie Burns, Terrell Edmonds, Devin Bush, right? That I think, he had this process in his head and these traits that he thought were important from what he had established early in his career when he had all these hits, but the league changed. And I don't think he necessarily adapted to the way the league was changing and was continuing to kind of use that old process. And I think you really saw that at the end with the Najee pick, with the Kenny Pickett pick, right? Like if you had drafted Najee Harris in 1995, he would have been an all-pro player, but you drafted him in 2021, right? It was a completely different league, and you needed your running backs to be able to be receivers out of the backfield and be better pass blockers than what Najee was and all that stuff. So I think that Kevin, as good as he was, and I like I said, I'm a big Kevin Colbert fan. I like a lot of what he did, but I think it was just that he didn't necessarily adapt to what the league had done in his latter years, and you saw that in his final draft class.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think you could even make the argument. You can go back to those early 2000 years when the Raiders and the Patriots started spreading us out, going 4 and 5 wide, and of course we didn't know what in the hell was going on because we were putting linebackers in awful spots, but eventually there was an adjustment. And so I agree with you. I think he went through a bit of an up and down period, and he adjusted, got better, and then obviously had some pretty shitty drafts there at the end. And so Khan is going to go through that as well. I mean, it's the law of the beast, I think. Why in the hell are we talking about German beers in the chat? How did that happen?
I did it.
Freaks talking
Some
about
asshole brought up soccer. I had to change the subject.
That was me. I brought up soccer
and
asshole.
Casey, are you ready to roll tonight?
Yeah, it can happen.
Let's go. It's been a while since we've had Casey, and I don't know about you guys.
Talk about
two-thirds of the Pittsburgh sports head coaches have been fired since Casey last appeared on our show.
Well, and we know who the one that isn't fired. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. Casey Kasem.
Yeah. Casey's Coast to Coast, American Top 40. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the week that was May 8th, 1994. Our favorite correspondent, Ryan, is back with us again this week, and he writes, Dear Casey, but he's just a soul whose intentions are good. Oh, Yins, you know that George is misunderstood. Casey, that's, of course, a parody of Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood, originally done by Nina Simone, and covered by the likes of Eric Burden and the Animals. Burden is still alive and kicking, and he, in fact, celebrates his 84th birthday this Sunday.
Wow.
But what's not alive and kicking is George Pickens' career in the black and gold. Casey, I'm sure you've heard by now that the Steelers traded George Pickens to the Dallas Cowboys, which sent the Pickens pimps into a frenzy on the platform formerly known as Twitter. I haven't seen a tantrum like that since I put down my 2-year-old for bed 3 hours ago. Casey, the Pickens pimps' reactions to the trade were downright embarrassing. You would have thought they traded away prime Jerry Rice for Limas Swede.
Limas.
Me, on the other hand, well, I'm thrilled about the trade. When I woke up to the news, you would have thought the Ringling Brothers came to town and pitched a circus tent in my bed. Casey, I was so excited, my sheets and comforter were touching the ceiling.
Okay, that's fiction.
If I'd gotten the news when I was at the Four Corners, I would have been in Arizona and New Mexico at the same time. I would have been hitting Ben and Walter White in the head. Ah, shit. At one point, Duquesne Light came over to my house and tried to hang power lines on it. Casey, all right, I digress. Poor little Georgie. He's misunderstood. It's not his fault. Georgie Porgy Pudding and Pie didn't get the ball and he began to cry. When the game was on the line, he dropped the ball every time. I was going to do the Andrew Dice Clay version of Georgie Porgy, but Steel City Blitz HR did not approve. Casey, it's way past time to accept that Pickens isn't as good as he thinks he is or his fans thinks he is. For every acrobatic catch, he makes 20 bonehead mistakes. He has horrible body language. He pouts. He's not a team player. He's either late to meetings or he doesn't show up at all. He's all about himself. He's a loser. Well, Ryan, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars and keep your radio tune right where it is. Staying at number 12 this week, here's Beck with Loser.
A wonderful welcome back for Casey Kasem. I did not expect that much, shall I say,
Excitement?
Yeah. That's pretty good. Standing in two states at the same time. Yeah, that's outstanding. Hey, we were really, really glad to be back with you. And thanks so much for everybody joining us tonight. I know we had a few new people in the chat, and please, you are always welcome. As you can tell, we don't always agree with each other, and we won't always agree with you, but we love having you, and we'll always be respectful, at least for the most part, or
not to each other.
Unless your name is Aaron. But thanks so much for everybody being here tonight, and we will see you again next week. And as always, everybody, go Steelers.
Ravens suck, although not as much as the Steelers.